Hi everyone, welcome back to another Novel Nomad. We're coming from you at night time this time because I did not have time to film during the day. So it's a nighttime filming. Hopefully the downlights aren't too horrendous. We'll see how we go anyway. I've got a few lighting rigs set up, but I'm testing it out. Because my library technically isn't in the room that it was that I've usually always filmed. It's in a new area now, so I just have to roll with it, really. I have to find my new normal. But it is very, very hot here at the moment, so please excuse how sweaty I am. I feel very sweaty right now. It is a very warm, sultry night, summer night. I think it's the first proper summer night we've had, and no cool breeze, nothing. I am missing winter already. But today is December 6th, which means we're doing the 6th Advent puzzle today. And this is Bookish Bauble, a very cute little bauble filled with books. And when I saw this design, not only did I think, oh my gosh, that sort of plain colour is going to kill me. I do very well with multicolored puzzles. As soon as I get a plain colour puzzle, I am finished. That aside, when I saw this, it kind of felt like a circular wrap-up type of feeling, and nowhere in my planning have I actually planned to talk about like 2023 in review, because unfortunately, just the way life has fallen for me this year, I haven't been able to share much with you online of my reading. So I wanted to do a little bit of a 2023 in review wrap-up and just kind of chat through what I loved doing this year and all the different reading projects that I did for myself this year. I didn't share them, weirdly enough. I mean, I might have on my Instagram, but even then I wasn't super active as I normally am on my Instagram. So it was a very interesting year of minimal book sharing for very good reason. I had a very stressful job. I kind of started in a higher role, and the role was fine. The workplace was a bit more stressful than it used to be. So I have since moved on and found a much better position and less mental stress result for me, which is wonderful. But that means I'm getting a much more creative feeling, and I feel like I want to be back with you all sharing all my reading adventures again, which is awesome. So sustenance. Let's get into it. 2023 for Novel Nomad in review starting now. All right, so one project I wanted to do, because I have so many of these books on my shelf, and I just looked at them. I didn't read them, I just looked at them, and that is poetry collections. I have so many beautiful poetry collections, and I decided for 2023 I would start to read them. And it started off really well. I mean, it fell off right in the middle when it got really busy at work. But I've started back up again, and it is such a joy because I have like an hour on public transport every single day to and from work. So just to be able to sit down and read a couple of poems, and I've been finding that I've been experimenting with all the different music I've been listening to. So I'll share with you my favorite recent find of a musician. Her music is beautiful, and it's a kind of not new age, but it's almost like new classical, and just to listen to how emotive her music is and reading some very emotive poems at the same time, it just heightened the experience. But so some of these this is kind of more of a general wrap up. So I read How Decent Folk Behave by Maxine Bennet Clark. Stunning read, absolutely amazing. 1,000 Mornings by Mary Oliver. Very gentle, very beautiful, lovely work. The World's Wife by Carol Ann Duffy. Hilarious, but also really poignant. And I mean, it was written a few years ago now, but it still resonates very well. Power Politics by Margaret Atwood. This one was really interesting, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really 1971 when this came out, so it was great to see that very early feminist movement coming in, how far we have come and how far we still need to go. It was really good to read that. And then I got The Girl Who Forgets How to Walk by Kate Davis. Beautiful cover. Really lovely magic realism style poems. Probably not my favorite out of the group, but definitely a very interesting collection of poetry as well. Then we had Christian Lang, Earth Dwellers. This was beautiful, very stunning, very emotive imagery throughout. It was beautiful. But my all-time favorite, I mean, I don't know how many times I cried reading this poetry, and it's just beautiful. I cannot recommend this enough. It's called The Jaguar by Sarah Holland Blatt. It's just, it's about the death of her father. Sarah's father dies from Parkinson's disease, and his story of him wading through the mental difficulty of trying to connect with his family and the changes that disease wrought in this person who she loved so dearly. That's my other dog, Ada. Beautiful. Just beautiful. So yeah, I definitely recommend this one. Far and away, most beautiful poetry collection I think I've ever read. Yeah, stunning. If you get a hand on it, I mean, it is Australian. She's Australian author. It's done by Queensland University Press, so Australian publisher as well. But I really hope you can get a hand, find it somewhere if you want to read it, because it's just beautiful, beautiful writing. So let's get on to the books. Now, I read quite a vast array of different things this year. I think my current number is tracking at 117 books for the year. I did very well on my counter. But let's get into the ones that kind of stand out to me when I was kind of looking back at the ones that, what ones really stood out. Now, first off, we're going to go with Wilding by Isabella Tree. Now, Wilding is basically about this, obviously, very well-off couple. They had a big estate. It's been in the guy's family for generations, I assume. And they had to regenerate it. In coming into the 2000s, they were having huge issues with the farm. Crops weren't being generated. They weren't getting the money they were getting anymore. So they decided to leave the farming industry and rewild their land. And they had acres upon acres of land. And this is in southern England, just south of London, in the Kent area location. And it's just amazing. There's so many different elements of English, natural history that I was unaware of, that they researched and tried to bring back into this natural world. And it is thriving. It's absolutely thriving. You're really keen to want to go visit, because you can go visit their estate, and it's just super cool. It's amazing just to hear all about the rewilding efforts that they're doing. Next, I did a little bit of an obsessive read, and that was Jeff Vandermeer's The Annihilation trilogy. I got this when I was over in New Zealand, actually. I found this at a secondhand bookstore. This is a cover that's very hard to find, and I've always wanted this cover. I thought, if you get that cover, Kate, you can read it. And I found it, and so I'm like, well, past me, I have to read it. So it was so good. It messes with your mind so much. It's like a slow burn psychological horror. And I'm not one for horror reads, but I am one for ones that make you really question what's going on. So I was just like, I don't know what's going on at all. And it's amazing. And I suppose that's a bit of a mystery loving side for me. I really wanted to discover the truth. The truth is out there even. But yeah, no, I read all three back to back, one after the other, could not put them down. Amazing series. I thoroughly recommend, especially if you like that kind of you're happy at being left in the unknown. My dog is very, very scritchy, noisy, shaking everywhere tonight. She's yet to settle herself down. The other one has, thankfully. So please excuse all the dog accompaniment in the background. But let's get on into something a bit more modern classic, and something I finally read. I was finally excited to read it. I already read this one, and you probably can't see it, it's Miss Bunkle's Book. By D.E. Stevenson, and it was such a lovely read. It was so silly and so lovely, and it's just got that classic English humour, and it just felt like a big old hug. And I read it at a time that I felt like I needed a big old hug, so is so in depth. I think it's like sits a little bit closer to the heart, this one. Such an endearing read. But definitely recommend. I did buddy read this, so I did have a lovely reading companion joining me throughout that read. And of course, another buddy read was Elizabeth George's latest Linley in our ever reading with Kate Howe. We're slowly going through the series. In the Presence of the Enemy. Oh, does she know how to craft a story? There was such a cliffhanger after the last book. I'm like, where are they going to take it? And then it just goes so well. It's never disappointing. Not once have I been disappointed by Elizabeth George. But yes, I've got one more Elizabeth George off the list. I do have the rest of the series waiting for me, but it will happen when it happens, and I'm very excited to see what happens next. Another one that was a fantastic non-fiction read, and one I was a little bit surprised at myself for picking up, because it's, like I said, I'm going through a bit of a nature writing, environmental non-fiction renaissance for myself. However, Indelible City by Louisa Lim, stunning. Absolutely loved this book. It was such an interesting perspective of Hong Kong. And it's about someone who lived there. She grew up there, and she had just had a really interesting view of Hong Kong, and also the changes that Hong Kong is experiencing. And she did it through the view of a rebellious art form. And it was really interesting to see how that portrayed a unique spirit to Hong Kong. And it's just why the city itself has been so captivating. So yeah, this was a really fantastic read. I definitely recommend, if you want some really interesting insight into Hong Kong itself, definitely find this one. Let's talk about another trilogy obsession. I'm currently working my way through book 3, so I didn't read as fast as Annihilation, but the book sizes are very different. I finally got around to A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Loved it. Honestly, whipped through this one, whipped through book 2. Book 3 got delayed a little bit with Victober, but loving this series. It's just so well written, so well crafted. The characters just give so much energy off, and I love when they're a little bit unpredictable. It just keeps it fresh. So yeah, loving this read so far. Going through my last 3 on my rough 2023 highlights, and that is 3 that I read at the very start of the year, and it was ones that had been on my list for 2022, and I finally got around to them. And the first one is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This was such an interesting connected short story collection that you didn't know was connected, and they slowly started connecting the dots, and oh my gosh, when you first realize that, it's the best feeling. But it was such an interesting dystopian, futuristic, past, questionable human, what are we doing to the world, and questioning how long our existence is kind of story. And it was so layered and in depth. And the characters, you're there for the characters, trust me. And even though it's a short story, each short story has its own unique style of character that just works. It just works so well. So this one was amazing, and I thoroughly recommend. Next we have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. It shouldn't come as any surprise considering how much I adore Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I had this on my list. I did leave it for a little while. I didn't read into the hype. And I waited until I felt ready to approach this book. I knew I would love it, and I did. It was just such a beautiful exploration of self, of loss, of exploration and discovery of identity and place and morals and being. It's an art, and yeah, it's the labyrinth within humanity was so clearly depicted in this book, and it was amazing. I loved it. Loved it so much, and it was so clever too. I love this book. It's really fun, actually. I read this at the start of the year. This is what I started 2023 with, so it was a good start to the year. And lastly, going with something a little bit more local, and that is Robbie Arnault. I'm not sure if I waxed poetic about Robbie Arnault, because he was my 2022 discovery. Oh no, he was an earlier discovery. He was a 2021 discovery, wasn't he, with Flames? I think I have a review somewhere of his first book, Flames, which honestly, Australian magic realism, nothing can top Flames. I'm sorry, nothing will top Flames. It is stunning. However, it's very heavy magic realism. So if that's not your jam, Limberlost might be. Limberlost is actually about his grandpa, who passed away. The book was finished and due to be published, but he passed away before the book was technically released, which is really sad. So it's dedicated to his grandfather and this idea of this mystical sense of growing up and this mystical sense of nature being so intertwined with folklore and stories and different elements that we kind of like to lose ourselves in the mysticism of nature rather than embracing the reality of it. And it's just so beautiful about the story of him finding the love of his life and other really beautiful, heartbreaking moments that happened along the way. So it's very, very much based in fact. It has a little elements of magical realism just to kind of highlight that kind of fantastical side of human imagination. But it's a beautiful read. I 100% recommend. I would start with Flames though, because that's like you're starting at the pinnacle, and then the Rain Heron and Limberlost are just like extra cherries on the cake. But Flames is the meat that is Robbie Arnaud's beautiful writing. Okay, so this is my giant pile of things I've absolutely adored and held on to throughout 2023. There are other things that I read as well that was amazing. Some of them I have lent out to friends, so I want to share the amazingness around. But that is the video for today. I'm going to go ahead and continue with this puzzle. So if you want to stick around for the puzzly content, stay online. And for everyone else, I will see you next time. Bye.